Hello students. Today we shall study the thoughtful little poem For Anne Gregory by William Butler Yeats. Let us first talk about the poet before we start with the poem. William Butler Yeats was born in Dublin, Ireland in 1865. He started his literary career with drama productions and ardently participated in the Irish literary revival. He was the chief playwright of the Irish Theatre, which he co-founded with Lady Gregory. The Irish Theatre later came to be known as the Abbey Theatre. He was deeply interested in mysticism and spiritualism, and his interest reflects in his body of poetry, which is usually symbolic. Some of his famous poems are The Second Coming, Sailing to Byzantium, The Stolen Child, and Leda and the Swan. He was one of the greatest modernist poets and won the Nobel Prize in 1923. You might be further interested to know that Yeats greatly admired the Indian poet and Nobel laureate Rabindranath Tagore. He even wrote the introduction to his celebrated book of poems, Gitanjali. Let us now begin with the poem. Never shall a young man thrown into despair by those great honey-colored ramparts at your ear love you for yourself alone and not your yellow hair. But I can get a hair dye and set such color there, brown or black or carrot, that young men in despair may love me for myself alone and not my yellow hair. I heard an old religious man but yesternight declare that he had found a text to prove that only God, my dear, could love you for yourself alone and not your yellow hair. The title of the poem tells us that it is dedicated to a person called Anne Gregory. A little background of the poem and Anne Gregory will help you understand the poem better. In the summer of 1898, Yeats met Anne Gregory or Lady Gregory. He spent the summer at her home in Cool Park in County Galway. Anne Gregory shared Yeats's passion for poetry and drama. As we have already discussed, they started the Irish Theatre or Abbey Theatre together. His friendship with Gregory perhaps inspired Yeats to dedicate a poem to her. In this poem, the poet reports an imaginary conversation with Anne Gregory. We can tell it is a conversation because all the three stanzas are written within quotes. The poet does not reveal the identity of the speakers in the poem, but we can tell that the first and third stanzas are spoken by the poet. The second stanza is Anne Gregory's reply to the poet. In the first stanza, the poet makes a very pessimistic statement. He says that no man will love Anne Gregory for the person she is. Rather, they will be attracted to the golden tassels of hair around her ears. Mark how the poet describes her hair with a metaphor. Great honey-colored ramparts at your ear. A rampart is the wall or defensive boundary round a castle. Yeats means to point out the basic nature of men in a society driven by greed and lust. They look at women as objects to be desired for their beauty and wealth. They do not love them as their equals. Anne Gregory has a ready reply to the poet's sordid view of reality. She says she can dye her hair a different color to change this reality. Maybe that will urge men to get over her appearance and love her for her inner beauty. The poet now tells her the bitter truth that only God can love her for her real self. An elderly religious person had once told him so. He had found this truth in a sacred text. Men are only capable of being enamored by women for their physical attributes. They cannot distinguish between appearance and reality. Yeats talks of the beauty of the soul beyond one's physical appearance in his other poems as well. Think of his very famous poem, When You Are Old. Here is an excerpt. How many loved your moments of glad grace, and loved your beauty with love false or true, but one man loved the pilgrim's soul in you, and loved the sorrows of your changing face. You can easily tell that this has echoes of the poem we just studied, For Anne Gregory. The poet despairs the loss of people who can love others beyond their outward appearance or earthly possessions. That is all for today. See you in our recap video.